Lincoln Murphy is Gainsight's customer success evangelist and is responsible for driving Gainsight's thought leadership in the areas of customer success, retention, churn mitigation, and expansion revenue. Lincoln's passion is creating efficient engines of growth for SaaS and subscription economy companies.
Did you know 75 to 90% of all revenue from your customers is generated after the initial sale? It's true. Hi, my name is Lincoln Murphy with Gainsight, and I'm going to talk to you today about driving revenue through your existing customer base. What we'll cover today, first, is upsells, expansion revenue, and negative churn. I'll introduce you to some of those new concepts. Then we'll talk about how customer success drives upsells. We'll talk about how to operationalize the upsell process. And finally, give you some of my favorite upsell tricks. And of course, I encourage you to visit the Gainsight booth at the Sales Acceleration Technology Summit when we're done here today. So like I said, 75 to 90% of all revenue from your customers is generated after the initial sale. We could say it a different way too. Only 10 to 25% of all the revenue from a customer will come from that initial sale. And isn't that interesting that we tend to focus so much on just that initial sale, yet it really accounts for only a small portion of all the revenue potential with a customer. Now, in order to get at that additional 90, 75% revenue, we generally need to make sure that our customers are getting value from our product, right? We can't just hope that that happens. We can't just expect it to happen. We have to really focus on helping that occur. And the way that we do that, or the way that the best companies out there do that, is by focusing on this concept called customer success. Now, we have a definition at Gainsight of customer success, which is very simple. And this is really not about customer success management products or technology like Gainsight. This is really taking a step back and saying, what is customer success? Okay, so this definition is very agnostic to any sort of technology. And you can see it on your screen there. Customer success is when your customers achieve their desired outcome through their interactions with your company. Now you notice a couple of things there. I said interactions with your company, not even just your product, right? It's so much more than that. And really, if you understand what desired outcome is, you'll see what I mean by that. Desired outcome has two parts. There's the required outcome, which is, the job to be done. It's the thing that every product that you compete with, or every service that you compete with, that they do. It's the thing that gets you in the game. It's the baseline. Okay, that's the required outcome. It's the thing your customer has to achieve. But there's the appropriate experience part of it, which is really important. And that's why I say customer success is when your customers achieve their desired outcome, the required outcome, and through the appropriate experience with their interactions with your company. It's so much more than just your product. It's everything. It's your thought leadership. It's your sales process. It's, when your salespeople are interacting with your customers, they're planting either the seeds of churn or they're planting the seeds of massive success. The same thing goes for your free trial, for your onboarding, for your integrations and other implementation aspects in the early days of the product. Helping the customers. And then it's the ongoing support. It's the proactive customer success management that's actually helping them. It's all of these things, right, across the entire customer life cycle, all of those interactions in the product, with your team, with the collateral that you develop, and all of that. And so if we think about this holistic approach to customer success, this definition really makes sense. And if you understand this definition, and you believe it and you buy into it, you can see how it can be a direct driver, right, of this 75 to 90% of the revenue coming from, post that initial sale. In fact, I would argue that you're going to get closer to 90% or more of the revenue coming after that initial sale, the more that you focus on customer success, right? That means that your customers are going to stay longer, they're going to spend more, they're going to bring in other parts of their company, they're going to bring in other net new customers through their advocacy. All of those things are really important to understand. So customer success where, from my point of view, and certainly the point of view at Gainsight, is that we are all about helping our customers achieve that desired outcome because so much comes from that. And let me be very clear. If you don't have customer success, if your customers are not achieving their desired outcome, you are not going to have upsell opportunities. And you might say, but I've had some customers over the years that I wouldn't say they were successful, but they bought extra seats or they bought some add-ons. Let me tell you what, they probably did that until they churned out. A lot of companies will stick around only until a better alternative comes along. And that's not what we want. We're not trying to build a business based on having our customers stick around until a better alternative comes along. I want my customers to not just stick around, but to thrive and to use more of my product because they're thriving, right? Not because they have to, not because of some crazy lock-in that I have or some escalating contract. What I want from them is their use to go up as they continue to thrive. And so I understand that there are going to be times where a customer who is not achieving success or not achieving their desired outcome is going to buy a few more seats or use an add-on or whatever. But at some point, that's going to stop, right? As soon as they find a better alternative. And that's really important. So that's what I say. Ultimately, in a scalable, in a repeatable way, if you don't have customer success, you do not have a real upsell opportunity. Now, upsell, let me be very clear, just in case you need more reasons to want to help your customers achieve their desired outcome so that they will buy more of your product. Upsell is a growth accelerator. It makes sense, right? I mean, customer pays you $100 and you sell them another thing for $100, they've paid you $200. That's a pretty simple equation. But at scale, this has some very, very powerful results. First of all, it increases the customer lifetime value, right? So if we can, well, like I said, if you pay me $100 and then you pay me another $100, your customer lifetime value is now $200. If I'm on a recurring revenue model though, and I can get you to pay me instead of $100, I can get you to start paying me $200, and I can get you to pay me $200 earlier in the life cycle, then actually what I've done is I haven't just added another $100 to the equation. I've added another $100 for more months, and you're going to pay that over the entire lifetime as a customer. All of a sudden, that becomes an exponential growth, right? So that's really great. And then there's the fact that I have to pay to acquire a customer, whether it's through marketing channels or sales processes or whatever, and that has a metric associated with it that it's called customer acquisition cost. And one of the metrics that we look at in SaaS, but you look at this in every other type of business in some way. Maybe you don't use the CAC acronym, but basically we're looking at the cost to acquire a customer, right? Well, it's not just the cost to acquire a customer that's really important. It's how quickly you can pay that back, what we might call customer acquisition cost efficiency. Well, if it used to cost me $50 to acquire a $100 customer, but now I can quickly get that $100 customer to become a $200 customer, well, I can spend more than $50 and still have the same payback equation, or I'm going to be able to get paid back faster. You see, it really does improve the spend efficiency in acquiring those customers. And then there's this fact that, look, I may end up losing a customer here or there, but I'm going to keep some customers, and if I am able to upsell them, expand their usage, then that new revenue that I'm getting might and hopefully will make up for the revenue that I lost because the customers churned out, right? So dollar revenue retention is going to go up. That's fantastic. And we're looking ultimately for a metric called net revenue retention. We would look at all of this and say, ultimately from our existing customer base for this time period, we kept more revenue than we lost. But there's another thing. Those customers that buy more from me, especially because they're achieving their desired outcome, McKinsey is an analyst firm. They said that customers that buy more will also stick around longer. Right? So not only am I going to get more revenue from these customers and make up for any of those customers that might have churned out, if I can get customers to buy more, the chances of them churning out at all goes down. Right? So I've actually lowered my what we call logo churn. Logo is, we're just saying, a customer churn. Right? We also know that there's dollar churn, which means a customer doesn't leave, they just end up paying me less. Right? So there's all sorts of different ways to look at this, but that's really important to understand. So upsell is absolutely a growth accelerator in lots of different ways, not just that one simple way of, well, you paid me $100, I sold you a new thing, and now you pay me $200, which, by the way, that's a pretty awesome thing. I don't have to make too much more justification than that. But if you needed some more, there you go. Now, if you're not really getting upsells, right, then you have the potential. So this is kind of the flip side of what I just said. You have the potential for that lower dollar revenue retention, or unfortunately, you might actually have higher churn. You're failing to capture that latent expansion revenue. There's a ton of expansion revenue just sitting there if we really understand our customers, that if we were able to help them achieve their desired outcome and move them from where they are to where they need to be, we could actually get them to buy more. We could upsell them. But by failing to do that, we're not capturing that latent expansion revenue. It's just sitting there. It's there for the taking. And I hesitate to even use the word taking, because that implies that I'm taking something and not providing value. But what I mean is, it's there waiting to be taken. I don't know the better word for it. But I will say this. Look, if we're talking about customer success, and the most logical next step for a customer is to buy an add-on or to bring more folks from their company into the product, and you are not solving for their success, then not only are they not going to pay you, you're not going to take advantage of that latent expansion revenue, but they're not actually being as successful as they could. You know that to reach their desired outcome, they need this add-on, or they need to bring in other users. But by not helping them achieve their desired outcome, you're not getting that upsell, and it's kind of a lose-lose proposition, right? So one way to say, well, we're not exploiting that latent expansion revenue, you could look at it as a negative, but really, to me, if you're not doing that, then to a certain degree, if there really is latent expansion potential, right, it's just sitting there, it's ready. If you're not taking advantage of that, then it also means that you don't understand how to really help your customers achieve their desired outcome, and so you're not helping them, right? You're not taking them to where they need to be, right? So that's why I always say upsells are not evil, right? Upsells are just helping your customer, do what they need to do next. So only make upsell, only offer them what they need. If you're trying to sell something to somebody that they don't need, well, that's not what I'm talking about here. And let me be really clear. If investors in your company, or your board members, or whoever understands that there is in fact latent expansion revenue potential, okay, it's there, and you don't take advantage of it, there's a really strong chance that they could have they could apply some sort of discount to your company evaluation. So because they know, look, you should be able to take advantage of the situation, and you should be helping your customers achieve their desired outcome. And if you're not doing that, then you're failing to really capture all of the value that's just sitting there ready to be taken in as revenue. And again, you're doing that in a way that is congruent with the success, with the desired outcome of your customers. If you're not getting that revenue, then that also means you're not helping your customers achieve their desired outcome, which also means not only are you not getting that revenue, but they're a potential churn threat, which now you see, okay, now you understand why you could apply a discount to the value of a company if they're not getting all these upsells, because it's like this whole cycle of this downward spiral if you don't take advantage of it. So, and I don't want to stick around. I don't want to talk too much about the negative side of this, but just understand that upsells, there's a lot of potential there, but if you're not taking advantage of it, there's some potential downside. So I mentioned expansion revenue. This is how we need to think about upsells. Upsells in the past have always been sort of this this thing that we, I don't know, it's just sort of a thing that happens. Again, it's a way to add revenue, but we don't really think about it as a real operational piece of the customer lifecycle. And I just want to call out some of the different ways that we can think about expansion revenue, and we can think about upsells and maybe cross sells too, right? So we think of complementary products. That's something that you would cross sell to your existing customer, another product that you have. But there's expanded use, right? So additional seats or whatever that metric is that you base your pricing on. There's add-ons, so value-based add-ons. One of the great examples of this outside of SaaS is Tesla's ludicrous mode. For $10,000, they give you a software upgrade that makes your car go a lot faster, right? There's an add-on, right? One-time purchases, right? That's another one. Maybe that would be, if the ludicrous mode is only a one-time purchase, there you go. Additional services, right? How to drive a car really fast. There's your additional services. So expansion revenue comes in all different flavors, and what's applicable to your company, it depends. But if we think about the trajectory of a customer going from, when they first start, from that initial sale to achieving that desired outcome, and then their desired outcome sort of evolving across their customer lifecycle, then we can think of all the additional products and services that we could give them. And so we need to have that trajectory very well understood. Now, I was going to introduce you to this concept of negative churn. Negative churn is interesting. It's exactly what I said earlier, in that you lose some dollars from a customer either leaving or customer reducing the amount of money that they're paying you, either through discounts or downgrades or whatever. And then some customers are going to buy more, right? And we want to make sure that the customers that are buying more, that revenue outpaces any revenue that might be lost through customer churn or dollar churn. So that's real simple. And this is just from Tom Tunga's from Redpoint Ventures, publishes a lot of really great data. And this was just his teardown of the S1 from when New Relic went public. And you can see, negative churn, they actually have more than 100%. This really shows, that they're getting I'll just read what it says. Each year, the typical customer pays New Relic 14% more than last year. That's what we want. Right? We want a customer to not only stick with us, but to pay us more as they grow. And then, of course, we want that to make up for any potential loss that we have. This is very interesting. This was from a SaaS survey published on 4 entrepreneurs, but put out by Pacific Crest Securities, which is what percentage of new ACV, or annual contract value, is from upsells to existing customers. Okay, so you look at big companies, they actually have somewhere between 23-33% of upsell of their new ACV coming from upsells. This is fantastic. But I want to show you, this is what's really interesting. If you look at the big companies, they're getting over 3 times as much ACV addition as the smaller companies from upsells. And so a way to correlate this is, and it's causation versus correlation. But the way that I read this is that the big, really successful companies really focus heavily on growth through upsell, growth through revenue from their existing customer base. It's really important. So hopefully I've convinced you a little bit, of the importance of upsells, but we have to make sure that this becomes a part of the entire process, right? So we have to operationalize the upsell process. And there's basically 8 steps, and I'm just going to kind of go through them really quick, but I want you to think about this stuff, right? So number 1, we have to be clear on what success means for your customer. What is their desired outcome, right? Somehow, if we have a high-touch environment, this is really easy to do, but otherwise, we need to set goals with our customers, okay? This is what you want to achieve. And we need to figure out where they start. We need to sort of benchmark where they start. And then along the way, we need to identify what I call success milestones. And then we design the journey along those milestones. And at some of those milestones, there are going to be upsell opportunities that occur that occur naturally. So if they achieve this particular success milestone, then we know that's a place to make an upsell offer. And we do this based on success milestones rather than timed. So a lot of companies will say, a customer that's been a customer for 9 months, that's when we make an upsell offer. Or if they've renewed once and they're 6 months into their new contract, we'll go ahead and make an upsell offer. And that's not the right way to look at it. Your customers achieve their desired outcome on a particular cadence, right? On a cadence that's unique to them. And so as they go through these success milestones, when they hit the appropriate one where the upsell opportunity is pegged, then we need to make that offer right then, right? So this is the way to operationalize this. And obviously this is very high level. You'll have to get very granular with this in your environment. But I'll tell you what, if you do this, no guarantees, but I can pretty much guarantee that if you do this, your upsells are going to go up significantly versus, sort of the let's do it one off and let's just sort of hope and, all of that, which if we're honest is unfortunately the basis for most of our upsell strategy, when in fact it should be operationalized. Now, some upsell tips and tricks that I use. I have 5. I have a whole bunch, but I came up with 5 here. And this is just kind of an overview of them, but we'll go into them. So first of all, mention upsells early in their life cycle. So you can do this, if you have a self-service sales model. You can do this if you have a very high-touch one-to-one sales model. But basically, you want to mention upsells early in the life cycle. It's very simple. You'll want to say something like, "Here we have this add-on," right? Of course, you don't need that right now, but once you get to and you can say the success milestone, you'll say it in whatever language matters to them. You'll say, then we need to talk about adding that on and, get their agreement, yeah, okay, cool. And then, and then that'll, when it comes up, it's, if you already got their agreement, then once it comes up, it's not even going to be a sales cycle. It'll just be like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. So it mentions upsells early in the life cycle. Improve time to first value so that you can upsell faster. Now, one of the things in customer success we work on diligently is getting our customers to first value delivered. That is time to first value. TTFV is a metric that we obsess over. We need to shorten the time it takes for our customers to get value. And the secret to that is that sometimes they're not going to get all the value, so we need to figure out what that initial value has to be. And sometimes it's just for the first time outside of sales, outside of marketing, for the first time, they see the real value potential in the product. It might still be a few weeks before they get actual value, but just finally seeing for the first time that everything is going to work out, that that they made the right decision, we want to get them there as quickly as possible. But once we do that, once we get them to that point of getting value, then if we have those success milestones, we're probably much closer to getting them to that success milestone where we can upsell them. Okay, so the faster we get them to value, the faster we can start to upsell. And like I said, if we can go from $100 to $200 a month, and we can do that instead of 13 months into their life cycle, if we can do that in 6 months, we've just added a tremendous amount of value in terms of ARR, annual recurring revenue, from that customer. We've literally exponentially increased the value of that customer. So the sooner we can do that, the better. Enable self-service activation where possible. And why I would say that is even in a high-touch environment, you have to know your customer, but we want to give them some opportunities. If we're within a product and normally we have a high-touch customer and we think that we need to have a conversation with them to turn on a feature. If you have the ability to have them just be able to activate that feature within the product, if again, at the appropriate success milestone, let them do that, right? So just because you have a high touch engagement with a customer, high touch, customer success relationship with them, doesn't mean that you can't bring some self-service into it. Let them have the opportunity to activate a particular feature. And then if they like it and if everything's working out, then if you have to add it into a contract later on, that's cool, but you're letting them have access to that. Offer what's called concierge onboarding. And I say in the very early days, so if you're a startup and you're listening to this, very early days, you want to do this. It's not so scalable, but it can really help customers get up and running with your product as quickly as possible, and you get to learn what maybe you didn't know before you got into this. You get to learn what's necessary. So it's a win-win. But you're getting their customer up and running as quickly as possible, which goes back to getting them to value as quickly as possible, which means you can start to upsell them faster. And I said self-service earlier, but also think about using self-service as part of free trials and proof of concepts. One of the things that always comes up is, for me, I do a lot of work with companies on their free trials, and how do we bring free trials into a higher touch sales process, right? Well, free trials can be used at different stages in the sales process, at different places within the sales funnel, if you will. And what we can do is we can take a high touch sales process and we can give somebody a self-service free trial. It allows us to scale our account executives, because a customer can go off and be still be engaged, but basically be engaged by our system in that self-service free trial. We can watch what they're doing. Maybe we can turn it over to a customer success manager that happens to work pre-sales. But ultimately, it's accelerating the sales process, because they're going to get to know, like, and trust you a little bit more. They're going to trust the product. And the idea there is that it's going to accelerate the sales process, which, as we said, should also accelerate their time to value, which should accelerate the ability to upsell them. So hopefully that gives you some ideas on how to upsell. Now, of course, Gainsight is a customer success management product. It's a piece of technology that you can use to implement some of the things we just talked about. It definitely helps you understand, manage the process of your customers achieving their desired outcome. So I told you what customer success is. Customer success management tools are what are used to orchestrate and manage the customer success process. So go check out our booth in the Expo Hall. Gainsight is the company name, and my name is Lincoln Murphy. I am Customer Success Evangelist at Gainsight, and I thank you so much for joining me today. Have an awesome